All right, welcome everyone again to another episode of From A to Built. I am Bryson Rayome here with my co-host Chris James, and we're being joined today by two amazing builders to discuss a very real topic, which we have titled Contractors Suck or Do They? This is a developer's guide to working with GCs the right way. I'm happy to have two of the best in the business here with me. We have Evan Richardson. He is the CEO and founder of Rayome Richardson, with over 20 plus years of getting highly complex projects built in LA. Evan, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We have Luke MacDougall. He is the president of Rayome Richardson, and Luke's a true operator. Started his career over at Shamit, managing amazing builds across LA and New York before joining Rayome Richardson to elevate their field ops and their team. So Luke, thanks for coming over.
Yeah, thanks guys. Happy to join.
Thank you. Before we jump in, I kind of want to set the stage for this episode, why we're doing it. And I think the general concept came from, being builders and doing this for 20 years, whether it's residential, whether it's commercial. There's kind of a general concept that people don't really love contractors. There's a ton of war stories across the board. Everyone has their story if you're in the architecture or development world. And you don't see a lot of developers going around singing praises of GCs and things like that. Mainly, I think it's because construction is very difficult. GCs are usually the recipients of a set of design documents or plans that you don't have a ton of say in until you get them. You're kind of left holding a mixed bag, whether it's good or bad. And if you're in the industry, most of the problems are usually starting upstream. And so we just wanted to have kind of an open and honest conversation about how can we as industry professionals have a great conversation around helping developers, helping architects kind of solve a lot of those problems, and also kind of reset the expectations and the reputations of the hardworking general contractors in our industry and all the problems that you guys do deal with on a day-to-day basis. So that's kind of what we're talking about. And where that starts for me is pre-construction. And if you're in the industry and you're not doing pre-construction, problem number one, that's where it all really starts. So I'd love to jump into pre-construction, talk to you guys about what is pre-con, what does it look like, where does it start, and how does that process work? If I'm a developer and I want to develop a cool project, what does pre-construction even mean?
Yeah, I think so. The first thing I think of when I think of pre-con, there's definitely some do's and don'ts in terms of what makes it successful. We just completed a really successful about 12-week pre-construction period for a project we're starting up in Santa Monica. A big part of what we want to do as a general contractor is take our actual team that's going to run the project and dedicate them to that. So that's definitely one of the don'ts would be, and where pre-con could be unsuccessful, is project team for the general contractor. They're assigned to other projects, running those full time, and then pre-construction is really an afterthought. So, right, we have a superintendent trying to close out a project, and meanwhile, they're trying to jump in and manage and get up to speed on this other upcoming project. So, one thing that definitely made pre-construction successful is that team that was going to run the job was full-time and dedicated to it. I think sometimes where pre-construction might get a little bit off the rails is it doesn't actually turn into pre-construction, it actually just turns into finalizing the design, right? So I think that's a part of it where our team and the whole team should be spending energy of going through constructability, pre-planning the schedule, bringing subcontractors on board early. What we end up spending a lot of time is it's the estimating team, speaking with subcontractors and pricing out different options. And a lot of it turns into really just exercising of pricing rather than preparing for the job. And then the second thing, what I would just say is that value engineering is such an ugly word. And I think for pretty much anyone in the industry, it's really not the most fun part of it, right? A design team puts together a beautiful design. It's exactly what the owner is looking for. And we come to find that project is 20% over budget, right? And then at that point, all of those resources, again, rather than focusing on pre-construction, how do we effectively build the job? We get such this narrow tunnel vision focus on, how do we chase down value engineering options? And that's where, again, it just takes that pre-construction effort of trying to pre-plan the job. And we're really not focusing on preparing for when the job starts up. But those are some things I think about. What do you think, Evan?
I think you're absolutely right. I think that, it's got to be the same team that's actually going to build it, right? And when you stack the 3-inch you know, assembled drawings on your desk. You can't really look at them on a computer. You have to literally, that team has to go through, memorize every plan, detail, connection, conflict, clash, like all the layers that it takes to go through and build that project. And you almost have to memorize everything so that you can build it in your head with your team first and identify the things where you're going to stub your toe later and,
Yeah.
and get ahead of it, right? But before, like on the pre-con, you were saying that, architects and developers, like, they think contractors are horrible, right? I don't disagree. And I think the feeling is mutual. And I think that
Not any of the ones we work with.
no, I think that it all starts and everyone's goal aligns, right? But not everybody understands what it takes to do their discipline, right? Like we understand what we need to do and we understand the issues we have, but I don't understand all the issues the architect has, and I don't understand the issues a developer has, right? They've got money coming behind them no matter what. Like they're paying no matter what. So like it's important. They created a budget with a pro forma. They went and got money from a lender, and like all that happened up front. And then they have a project that they need to deliver, and the budget doesn't align. They're like, shoot, I'm in trouble, right? Architect gets to deal with code changes every 2 years. It's like they're adding additional Title 24 requirements, additional commissioning, additional lead requirements, Cal Green, like being able to, first of all, like learn it once and then continually learn it every 2 years is got to be almost impossible.
Yeah.
And so where I think it goes wrong in pre-con is that they're under pressure to deliver. The timing going through permitting and design they're getting pressured and they're never going to hit their milestone. And instead of like a choreographed, coordinated group of people that all are experts in their field putting something together that we can build, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm done, send. Right? And I look at like my second grade daughter, she was at like a dance recital, and I look and I'm like, wow, all those 8-year-old girls were able to get on stage in front of 400 people and do a choreographed skit for 10 minutes. And like, that doesn't happen if they all practice at home by themselves. Like they have to get together regularly, coordinate, practice, and make sure everything comes together. And I think that's where it starts. Like if they were doing the actual pre-con up front and working on a coordinated set of drawings, I think that would be the best possible way to deliver a complete set of documents.
Yeah, I love that. Especially the dancing piece there. For pre-con, I want to back up just a little bit on it because, sometimes I forget when we do these episodes, some people may not even really understand what pre-con construction is, what does it mean? And, in the industry in general, I think a lot of people don't do pre-con at all. And we've seen that a lot, where you'll see somebody say, hey, here's a set of drawings. I need a price back in 3 weeks. And this is where, we get to a point of always pushing this concept of pre-con, because that way is the wrong way to build and to plan for a project. So when you're thinking about that and you're thinking about pre-construction means engaging with your general contractor on a project before the true formal bid process, if it is a competitive bid process, starts, where do you guys think the best point to come into that is? Is it a point where the architect is at 50% SDs? Are they at 50% CDs? Where do you want to be as a contractor when you're saying, hey, we want to engage you for pre-construction, and you're like, hell yeah, this is the time to do it, where we can bring the most value through the course of the project to hit the ground running?
I think right out of the gate would be great, like when it's conceptual at first, to really understand what the developer and team are trying to do and like what the architect or design team is trying to achieve, right? That's first. Then we kind of go quiet for a little bit. And then I think we come back in probably at, I would say like I would say 50% DD, right? Where they're folding in all the disciplines, maybe 100% SD, somewhere in between there, to just kind of look at it and ask the questions and not be afraid to raise your hand. Be like, I don't understand what you've drawn here. And if I don't understand it, I now have to communicate it to 30 sub trades that go out to 10 guys for each of those trades. There's like 300 people that have to like look at this and understand it. And if we don't understand it, they're definitely not going to understand it. And so I think it's somewhere between the 100% SD and 50% DD.
Yeah, I think that's the right time too, where what we want to do as a good partner is come in from a budget standpoint too, and at least establish that baseline. And that's what the design team is generally looking for too. They don't they don't want to invest all of their people hours in going down the road pursuing this beautiful design just to find out that it's that 20% over budget.
Right.
So that's probably right about the right start, right?
Right.
And then it's challenging from our side because there'll be clients with a one-page napkin sketch, right, with maybe a square foot and a little bit of a bullet point narrative of what a program is. And then we might float out a number based on historic data and what we're seeing in the market. And then later on down the road, everyone wants to hold that to plus or minus 5% accuracy. Right?
Pull out the napkin sketch.
Right. And then even
it's an exhibit.
Yeah. Right. And then even at like 50% DD, and now we get into talking about for a general contractor, and right, we have a really tight group of subcontractors, but it's what's that level of trust with a client and investment of energy during the pre-construction process, especially if we're in early and we're doing pre-con, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're not contracted, but we have trusted partners who want to be a part of the process and make a project successful, whether we do it or not. But then at the same time, our subcontractors who on the other side of operating are super busy and extremely busy. And a lot of our subcontractors wear multiple hats, right? It's like the owner might be the PM, might be the estimator. We have a project that's closing out with them. And then we're like, hey, do we also bring you in on 3 pre-con efforts and ask you to price this right now? So that's a big thing from our side too, to try to balance in terms of trying to get that right level of certainty with the design team too.
Luke brought it up, but identifying constructability and like explaining why it's an issue and then bringing a solution, right? And like not just be like, this doesn't work to an architect, like, okay, or they have to go communicate to an engineer, right? You kind of have to bring that solution, be like, I don't understand this. This doesn't work. I have a conflict or a clash here. I can't get this duct or sprinkler around a beam. And then bring the solution, be like, hey, I think we have to change this. And then allowing them to change it in that 100% or 50% DD phase, or at the kind of 50% CD phase. How many times I've been going through pre-con and been like, I should probably ask about that because it's going to be an issue. And then like fast forward a year and being like, God, why didn't I raise my hand? Why didn't I say this is going to be an issue? And I think the entire design team having experience in that product type and actually have gone and made the mistakes previously over their career and knowing how to anticipate what's going to happen and being prepared and being like, this is what is going to happen and here's what we do to get around it, and bringing that expertise to the design team and the developer, whether they want to hear it or not. Like an example would be you're going through it, a high-rise building, it might be an adaptive reuse or something like that, and they're putting in new elevators. Great. So structural's all done. They've done their seismic retrofit. They've done all of their strengthening. And you're looking at the elevator and you're like, there are no rail brackets. And the engineer's like, I don't have that included. And you're like, okay, well, we need it. The project needs it. We're not going to not do it. And so you have to make an assumption. You're like, I'm assuming we're going to need a 4x8 by ½ inch HSS from the basement all the way to the roof to give rail brackets. And so you're like, okay, how do I price that? And then you communicate with the owner. It's like, I'm going to establish an allowance now for this project. Whether we use it or not, I think it's going to be needed. It's $100,000. And they're like, wow, that's a lot. And you're like, okay, do you want me to carry 0? And they're like, no, we need it, right? So you're trying to anticipate the things that will come up on the project and be prepared for them and know what to do.
I think that leads to the next question, which is, most people think a permit set means a complete set, but what does it usually mean from your perspective?
Good question. Good question. And right. And where does that fall in line with your CD set? And where does that fall in line with your IFC set, if you get one?
Yeah.
Right. Like, what are we calling it? A lot of times, right, when an owner, and especially in Los Angeles, is trying to get a project off the ground, everyone looks at critical path as, what is your permit date? Right. It's like, it's a pretty long.
Just for the audience, though, can you help them explain what is the critical path, quote unquote?
Good question. Good question.
Construction vernacular here. Trying to help everyone.
Yeah. Okay. So scheduling, and a lot of people hear CPM method or critical path method for scheduling. So for us as builders and from a technical side, you'll use a scheduling software, something that ends up showing your string of activities all in a Gantt chart, right? And a lot of people have used planner boards or even Asana and things like that, a little bit more, less construction industry specific. That's what you'll see. But really, we go in and we build the entire job ahead of time. So map out every single sequence and activity, everything that has to happen on the job. So, right, like, what do I have to do when I start? I need to show up to the job. I need to do layout, right? Then I need to frame my walls. Then I need to do all of my MEP rep and infrastructure, right? So I map it all out in that order, whatever the longest sequence of activities are, and then get me to my overall duration for a job. So say a standard restaurant might be 22 weeks overall. Those string of activities that get me to that 22-week timeline, that's my critical path. And then along the way, what we're going to have in the project schedule is there'll be plenty of other things that have to happen, right? Like, it's going to take me longer to build out my bar and my restaurant than the manager's office in the back of the building. So the manager's office is going to be done 2 months before the project is over. That's not my critical path. In that sense, we say that is float or that is slack, because it's like, hey, if that area pushes out a week, I'm still going to finish my project on time. But a lot of times, especially in Los Angeles, and especially with people who don't build here all the time, right? It might be a retail store. It might be someone who's a hotel operator and they build nationally. And all of a sudden you show up to LA and you start working with Los Angeles Department of Building and Safety and realize that you go into this massive pile of applications and everyone's out there trying to pull favors or get themselves to the front of the line, is that the permit process is what takes a really long time. So what we'll find oftentimes is that permit set, for one, it's not fully coordinated, but it's everyone clicking print as fast as possible on something that looks like it's code compliant and will get through the planning department. And along the way, because they know that that's going to take a lot of time, they continue to design. So usually by that point, once they get comments back, the design continues to progress. So it's this really like ongoing process of, before the design is done, they click print. So what happens with that permit set that's not fully coordinated, that's not, and they're still designing, they ask us to price that to contract to. So here we are in the background with all of our subcontractors, and for a really thorough set of drawings, maybe we're trying to do a really detailed GMP contract with someone that might take us 6 weeks. By the time we're done pricing that, there's 20% of the scope has changed, right? And so that's a challenge. But so when I think of permit set, more times than not, we're like progress set. That doesn't actually mean it's going to be ready to build on. And usually at that point, further iterations are going to be coming.
We should rebrand it to progress set.
Yeah.
Just like,
Yeah.
just as like a standard baseline.
Yeah.
Someone says permit set, it's like, oh, you mean progress set? Cool. Yeah, let's talk about it.
Right. And I mean, how often does that happen, right? And we're trying to mobilize a team. Maybe we're in pre-construction. There's a lot of pressure to get the job started. There's a set milestone end date and when something needs to open. And maybe it's a retail store that needs to be open by a certain season. They need to be open by Black Friday. Or maybe it's a music venue that needs to be open by a certain time of the year when the concert and music industry is really active. How many times do we get a start date and a projected permit date from an expediter or client? It might be off by 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 20 weeks. Like we've seen it all.
This is when in 2014 we were building a post-production like editing space in Santa Monica, and every week we'd go in the trailer or on site, we'd be like, okay, the design team was like, we're getting a permit, it's going to be next week. It was like, great. And I decided, I was like, I'm going to grow a permit beard. And so what I did is I told him, I said, look, I am so excited, I cannot wait to start this project. We're ready, it sounds like you guys are ready. And I was like, I am not going to shave until we get a ready to issue permit. They're like, great, it's like going to be a week. It was 14 weeks. And my wife was like, can you cut that thing? I was like, I couldn't. It was just, it was getting huge. And so, it doesn't seem like that long, but it definitely can take a long time. And just all the little things like, the comments are just crazy.
On the permitting side.
On the permitting side, right? And so they're putting the architect or the design team through the ringer on things that could be solved a lot faster. But the time it takes for someone to like document it, take the plans, like stick them in a basket over here, and then like someone else like after lunch they like get them and like they document it and they kind of enter it in the computer. It's like 4 weeks go by and all they had to do is like, if I just stood here, and I think Bryson, you made a funny post on LinkedIn. I commented, and someone was like, how could you expedite the permitting process in Los Angeles? Like, imagine if plan checkers, it's like, all right, You get $3,000 for every set of documents you review and approve, whatever it takes. If it takes you 6 months, you get $3,000. If it takes you 6 days, you get $3,000.
Mhm.
I guarantee you'd have some people working pretty hard
Yeah.
to make sure that all of their comments that they have on that set of documents are concise and complete, so that
Yeah.
when they give it back to the design team, that design team has one opportunity to correct all those.
Yeah.
And then the plan checker, who's putting everybody's safety first, right? Which is like, you always want to get it done, but you're kind of like, okay, if my son or daughter or wife or myself or friend was going into a building, you're kind of like, I'm really happy that plan checker did their due diligence and made sure that this environment was safe
Mhm.
for patrons. But when you're a developer or a builder, you're like, what is taking so long?
Yeah. And then it seems like because of how the process works, it's forced architects and developers into this position of, because part of the question was, what's the difference? What's missing? It's missing everything that's not required to get through the permitting process.
It's all the layers.
So it's like we're doing
all
the minimum
layers.
amount
Fair.
to get through the permitting
Yeah.
process.
It's a C-. They're like,
Yeah.
here's our C- work.
Yeah.
Like, what is the limit to get me through this plan check?
Yep.
And like, here it is.
Yeah.
And that just wreaks havoc on as you were touching on, Luke, just wreaks havoc on the pricing process. Because
Yeah.
like you said, they want to know what their project is going to cost. They're pricing off of that set. By the time you get it back, 30% is changed.
Yeah.
And now you're having to go back through, and depending on how the developer is working, here's new mechanical, here's new electrical, here's new plumbing.
Yeah.
So interesting.
What's even better with that, while we're just talking about that and just permitting, you might call it the HJ or authority having jurisdiction, but 95% of projects will end up making additional changes after the permit set's approved. They have to do it all over again
Mhm.
while you're in the project, right? So we have to, if we're working on a 26-week project and we're like, hey, you're making a lot of changes here, you're adding receptacles, you're changing the circuiting in the panel, maybe you had to add a mini split in an IT room that was missed. It's like, okay, what's your deadline on when you need to resubmit to the city by?
Mhm.
So sometimes, let's say it's at 50% of the project completion. So it's a 26-week job, it's at 13 weeks. By the time you get to 20 weeks, they've made more changes that require another resubmission. And that's a big snafu that we run into really often too. We're trying to close out a project, the owner's really ready to move in. We're trying to get certificate of occupancy, and now we're waiting on plan check all over again. So
Yeah.
it's like they're an important bunch to keep happy.
But somehow
Yeah.
it's our fault.
Yeah. It definitely is.
That is a perfect segue into the next question, which is when everything happens like that and like the budget is like shifting or drifting or escalating, how do you get it back on track? I mean, what is there any like magic formula to do this? I mean, it kind of puts everyone in a difficult spot.
Yeah, the whole budgeting process as a whole, right? How do you guys like to approach it? Because you see this scenario where a lot of people wait too long, they skip pre-con, they spend a ton of time getting you these design docs, price it, here they are a year and a half later, can't wait to get the pricing and start construction, and they're 25% over budget. And that's not something that they can handle. So they're kind of at square one, in my opinion, of like, okay, now you have this set of documents that you poured your heart and soul into, you're 25% over budget. What do you guys do to like work with clients to make sure, number one, either that doesn't happen to start with, or number two, once you get to that point and they're at 25%, how do you get them back to where they need to be?
That one's tricky. So I mean, one easy solution is not value engineering, but descope, right? So that's really hard for people to do. But
Wait, what is descope?
so
Say more about that.
So descope, right, is, let's say you're actually eliminating parts of the design, or you are segmenting an entire portion of a project that maybe they don't need on day one when they open, where it's like, hey, if my financing doesn't work for this number, but if I open up this business and it's really successful, and then I can prove that, maybe I can raise more capital later, and it's possible to bring a general contractor back after the fact, and let me add this part of the project later on. So that's actually a pretty good solution, and it works well. It depends on the level of cost that the project needs to be reduced, right? It's like if we're at 125% of the budget, that's going to be really difficult to just change your floor tile or your wall covering or go to an alternate manufacturer on, say, your HVAC equipment and pick all of that back up. I would say what we see a lot of times, or oftentimes, right? Project scope will be reduced, they'll get de-scoped. So now the fun part is then once project's happening, everyone's excited, everyone's motivated, they see the vision coming to life. They're like, wow, I can't imagine opening up without that part of the project. So you're at like, say, a 9-10 month schedule. We could have started all of it on day one, but you have that entire scope that we eliminated, took out of the plans, and it's month 4, and they're like, hey, we want to add that back in. I'm like, well, it's gonna be real. They're like, well, why can't we finish in the same amount of time? So that's something that we run into often too, but totally understand, right? It's developers, especially in the industry that we work in adaptive reuse, they have a lot of grit. There's a lot that goes into it, especially people who've seen the life of a project going from change of use and how long that takes as well. When they're, say, changing an old industrial building to, say, to be occupied by patrons as a restaurant, it takes them a really long time and a lot of grit to get to where they're at. So then some moves like that do have to happen to get a project off the ground, and at least just get a shovel in the ground and get started.
Yeah.
De-scope, like in my opinion, difference between de-scope and value engineering is value engineering, just like Luke said, it's like, let's change the copper busing or the copper feeders to aluminum. Great. Now someone's got to like go and redesign, and they're going to have some sort of cost to yield $50,000. And you're just going through and you're combing through all the plans, and it's going to take energy and effort from the design team to make those changes, right? We're going to change light fixtures. It's not like you just like pick this one to that one. You actually have to put it on the fixture schedule, go through Title 24 again. Or let's change, this tile from some sort of custom-made tile out of Europe to Dell tile, right? That's easy. De-scoping is a red pen and taking the plan and been like, we're not doing this, X, right?
Yeah.
And then now you're saying, okay, this entire assembly is out. I don't have to redesign anything. I'm just not doing that.
Yeah.
Right. And usually it's layers. It's the last layers. Like it could be the wall covering. It could be the flooring. It could be something when it gets to like a roof deck that I've had removed, like that gets a little deeper because you are doing a redesign, but you're like, this 2,500 foot roof deck, everyone's like, oh, how much is it? Like $600,000. I'm like, well, it's $4 million because all of the live load and dead load are transferring all the way down the building. We're like, wow, I didn't realize that. Plus you're bringing all the elevators up, the circulation up, all the fire life safety. Like it's just unbelievable how many little things one addition can make.
I mean, trying to provide takeaway for anybody that's listening, how do you avoid that happening to your project to where, I'm designing this project, and whose fault is it? Let's place blame here. Are we saying it's the architects that are over designing these projects? Is it a scenario where potentially the developers aren't informing their design team of their final budget, saying, hey, I need you to design to this budget? Is it the GCs aren't getting involved early enough to give them that initial gut check of like, hey, you guys are off track here? Like, what are 1 to 2 things if you were talking to a developer when they're in that early design phase and they're like, hey, I can only spend $300 a square foot on this all in? Like, who needs to know that, and how do they work through that to make sure they don't end up where we see a lot of people, which is, I got CDs and I got to start over, or I got to de-scope the whole thing all over again.
I think that going back to that pre-con, like having alignment up front and setting a realistic budget, right? That's where it starts, right? So is the budget for what they're looking for real, right? If you like walk into a Mercedes dealership and you're like, I have $75,000 and I want an S-Class. It's like, okay, I don't know how to help you, right? Like you can't get it. You can get this E-Class, and they're like, I don't want the E-Class, I want the S-Class. You're like, okay, then you need to change your budget or change the vehicle, or, you know what I mean? Like you can't, the budget has to be real for the desired end result. And I think we get a lot of pressure as a GC. So to answer your question, like, how do you solve it? I don't know exactly, but I think we get pressure as a GC because we're the last of all the hired guns that do it to be performing, right? And so up front, it's like, maybe the acquisition was a little more than they anticipated. Maybe the design fee was more than they anticipated. Maybe the legal fees were more than they anticipated. The permitting took longer. So like everything's adding up, eating into the actual hard cost budget. And so that hard cost budget gets whittled down And the timeline, by the way, the timeline never changes. Like
Mhm.
Yeah.
we should have started here. So I think it starts up front and being real. And something that I think can be effective is like talking about a starting number and an ending number, and really communicating with the developer. Be like, this is what I'm seeing on the construction documents. This is what it's going to take, and this is what everyone's anticipating. But based on experience, like you should anticipate to here, right?
Mm.
That's if like pencils are down and no further design happens. And if there is going to be design, then let's like anticipate a little further. Like, are you prepared for that? And if they are, it's still a successful project. It's just like really understanding the starting budget, ending budget, starting scope, ending scope.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think it's I think one thing is just everything that we do at the end of the day too. We're this collective group, we're this collective unit, and everyone depends on everyone, right? I've met some magical estimators out there in the general contracting world who are 20, 30 years of experience, and you could ask them anything. They've got their brain is a unit cost library of all these things, and they have all this historic knowledge, and they've bid so many projects, and even that is challenging. You can't look back at a project from 5 years ago and try and use those square foot or unit costs and still use those today, right? There's been a lot of escalation or uncertainty in the market that's changed a lot of that. But at the same time, when we talk about who's to blame, right? Um, if something's designed and it's within budget, and then the owner requests a bunch of changes and adds scope, like clearly they're the ones to blame, and sometimes they don't really realize that, right? They're like, why'd my number go up? But an architect is really hard to blame, because I look at it from our side. I'm like, I don't know, are they really sitting there with an RS Means book of unit costs, and are they,
Yeah.
is each one of their vendors that they're working with, are they giving them unit rates of material plus install for their product? Like, I don't know. If they do, that'd be pretty amazing, but I don't think that that's how it works. So they depend on us. And even for a general contractor, it's challenging with limited information to do that. Like I said, that budget expectation of plus or minus 5% certainty. One way I could say to solve it is that we have this really close community of subcontractors. All of our work is negotiated with repeat clients, or say it's, a lot of work with one developer with really comparable work. We have a negotiated pipeline there. And then we are coming in early and we're hard pricing it at 50% TDs. But our subcontractor team is willing to do that because we know that our efforts are going to be worth it, and there's going to be projects that are going to come out of it, right? So everyone's willing to invest that energy early and develop that relationship with the design team and that consistency in that owner. But a lot of what we find is that an owner might come in, we call it being exercised, but we've got those clients where we might go and price 10 different things for them, and then you never hear from them again, right? And so that's where you don't necessarily, for that client, you're not going to put in that same level of effort and exercise your subcontractor. So it's such a balance, but I think something there between consistent repeat relationships with comparable projects, that's your best opportunity to try and map something out with certainty early on.
Yeah. Keep it tight.
Yeah, or even like the word custom, right? It's like, what elements of your project, what moments, whether it's an entry or like a special part of the project, those could be custom, but limit that custom portion to just that area. And if things can be, an example would be like skylights. Like if the skylight is like 4x8, it's like I can like hit order and get that, and I don't have to deal with 15 people being like, what's the dimension? It's 8'1 3/4. You're making it custom. You're just adding cost, time, and energy, and and then also potential issues, right?
Yeah.
So the less custom on the general build is better for budget.
Nice.
I feel like, it's kind of like a cliche now, but they say our industry is all about relationships. And I feel like that's just immensely true when it comes to GCs and developers working together. That level of trust has to be there. But also, Evan, you made this point earlier about, the ballet being conducted. There has to be like a level of team spirit and camaraderie on the team between the architect, the engineers, the subcontractors, the GC, the developer.
Everybody.
Yeah. So I guess my question is a little more like kind of philosophical, but how do you build that trust? Like, how do you do you have any like go-to like just team building methods that you like institute when you're trying to work on a job just to make sure you're kind of facilitating that spirit, that energy, because sometimes it can get very confrontational and very acrimonious, and that is actually, I mean, that stuff doesn't show up in the drawings,
No.
but it can be
Yeah.
like 10 times as worse.
Yeah.
Well, it's like be human, right?
Mhm.
You'll get. I was telling Luke this, and we were kind of laughing, but developer will be like, "Why can't you put 10 more people on it and get it done faster?" It's like I can't like put 3 women in a room and be like, "Can you make a baby in 3 months?" It's like, no, I can't do it. Right? Like I still need the 9 months to produce the child. Like that
Yeah.
is necessary, and just and like you need them to be human, right? Be
Mhm.
human. Like everybody cares. Everybody around this table cares, and I think that how do you get everybody working together? They gotta care. They have to care, and it's like you get an architect or even one of our team or an owner, and that everyone hides behind a computer, and it's like it's not effective. Like we need to
Mhm.
solve this right now. It's like everybody's got to come together and be like, what is the issue? How do we solve it? How do we move forward? And like you're going to make a mistake. There's no right answer. It's just like this is the best possible solution. This is what we're doing. Right?
Yeah.
You got to kind of put it together and be like, okay, I think this is going to work. It's the best solution that we came up with, and like then you execute it. And I think that helps the team build trust and like a bond. But if everybody's hiding and like I see it a lot when some of the design team might be remote. They might be, from New York, or they might be somewhere else, like in Nevada, and they're not at the site, right? And Luke and I talked about this before. It's like sometimes you're out there, you're building something, you got steel out there, you're like, this doesn't work. I literally need to grab the structural engineer and be like, bring your stamp with you,
Yeah.
get over here. Everyone's standing here. What do we do? Here's our recommendation. Like, we want to put a stiffener place. Like, yeah, you can do that. Stamp, sketch, go.
Mhm.
Right? Rather than like, let me get back to you in 2 weeks. So
Yeah.
I think they got to care and they got to be present.
It's kind of like the
Yeah.
concept of, the big topic is culture within companies, right? You got to have a great culture. And it's a great question, Chris, because it makes me think of culture on a job site and within a project. So not just the company, but the culture that's created on a job site and who drives that. And I think that's such a great piece where we talk about this a lot on the management side, where the teams that you put together, if you cherry pick a bunch of teams and throw them in a pot, good luck building that culture and those people all looking out for each other.
Mhm.
But if you can find those teams that have worked together, respect each other, know each other, then you're going to have a lot better chance of creating that culture on site where everyone's kind of watching everyone's back.
Well, you've been saying that for years.
Yeah.
You're like, how do we continue to learn from each other?
Mhm.
Like, what are everyone's strengths? What are everyone's weaknesses? Like, Evan doesn't like emails. He'll probably answer a phone call, but you know what I mean? Or like Bryson's really good at this, or Luke's really good at this. And then you work with that same team, whether it's an architect developer, and you're gonna know it's like architect's not going to do this. I got to solve this for them.
Mhm.
But then they also know I'm not going to do this, or I'm really good at this. So I'm going to, I'm not, this is how they can help. So like all of a sudden you're in harmony and like working together, and you know how to supplement everyone. Right.
Yeah.
It reminds me a little bit of sports, and it makes me think that if you are a developer, it seems like you should be thinking of yourself as like the GM of a sports team. Like you're trying to facilitate the culture of the team, trying to get everyone to work together. So if it's football, you want the O-line to be protecting the quarterback, to be knowing what the running back's doing, and like the wide receivers as well. The level of coordination, like you said, you can't just throw a bunch of like free agent mercenaries in the room and hope that they all work together. They have to trust and care about each other and hold each other accountable too.
And practice
together,
right?
Yeah.
They have to practice. You can't just be like, all right, everybody, like your receiver, be like, sounds good.
Yeah.
I don't know the playbook, but I hope I get it right. Like that's not effective.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I think the other thing too, you mentioned it, but also how do we work well as a team is does our superintendent have the architect and structural engineer's cell phone number, and can they just call them, right? Do we, do they want our superintendent calling them 10 times a day? No, of course not, right? But I think they would appreciate, rather than blasting out 10 RFIs and them getting lit up with Procore notifications, it's like, hey, okay, I'm going to organize a list of items. Do you have time at 3 p.m. today? So I'll run you through it, right? Maybe even it's like we have so much technology. It's like, hey, why don't I just FaceTime you from the field? I know you're busy.
Yeah.
Right. Like, but those are little things. I could probably say, how often does that happen? Not often. Right. And then everyone too is like design consultants, very busy. All of us are
Yeah.
very busy, right? And many of them, they're not dedicated to that one project. So, we're trying to be the squeaky wheel, but in the right way. So we can still, that superintendent can selfishly make their project successful and also make the design team look good
Yeah.
at the same time, right? And
Hmm.
kind of how you'd mentioned, Chris, it's like no one wants to stand out to the developer or the client as kind of like the bad apple on the team, right? You want to seem like you want to be that team player, but also you don't want to be that person where now there's contention
Yeah.
between people on the team. So I think really, if superintendent or project manager have the cell phone number of the architect or engineer and can call them up and get quick answers, or at least it's like, okay, maybe sometimes that is, hey, I need to think about it, submit an RFI. It's like, great, here's this well documented RFI. I'm gonna make it super clear on what we need an answer for, and here's a proposed solution. I think those are the sort of things that we could do from the general contractor side that I think help build that trust and build that team dynamic with the design team.
Yeah. No, I love that. I was thinking when we were talking about the budget piece, you said something, Evan, where you're like, you eat into the budget. And then, by the way, timeline never changes.
Never
So it's like you
changes.
kill it, and then it's like, all right, we lost 6 months here.
Yeah.
That doesn't, but we still need to finish by Christmas. And that's such a massive part of every project. Schedule,
Always.
schedule. How are we going to hit this schedule? And I know you guys have a ton to say on this because you're out there, you have that initial schedule of where you start and where you're trying to go, and then all the things that transpire throughout the course of the project. What are some good takeaways in terms of like how do you manage a schedule properly? What should developers really know about? Hey, if you want to keep your schedule tight, this is how you should go into it. And this is what you need to be thinking about if the schedule truly is paramount on a job.
Every day counts. That's one thing, is that it's really hard to pick up any time, let alone say shave a week off a schedule. It's really easy to lose a week or 2 weeks. So I think a part of that, and a practice that we do on our team, is just superintendents are responsible for managing the near term schedule. A part of that, and something that we're implementing, is that a part of that everyone should know what the critical path is for the job. We talked about that before, but it's like every single day counts, and what's supposed to be happening that day, is it happening? So I think it's really, you need to have a sense of urgency for the entire length of the job, and at some point in time you can't have a moment where someone takes their foot off the gas pedal and expect we're still going to be able to make it at the end. I think that's one of the challenges, right? And then those are those stressful situations that we run into where you have this imminent decision that needs to be made. You're 50% leaning one way, 50% leaning the other. Someone has to be willing to make that decision. And sometimes it's going to be wrong,
Sometimes it's going
right?
to be
Like,
wrong.
sometimes
Yeah.
it's going to be wrong. Sometimes it might cost money. Sometimes it might, but right. But at the end of the day, if schedule is most important, it's like the job progresses and moves forward. And maybe it's something that we can go back to later. But schedule is tough. And then, but I do really feel like if everyone on the project understands, it's like, hey, this is critical path. We need to answer right away. And then again, having that team that cares, having that relationship with the design team where you can call someone and they're like, absolutely, like, let me try and jump on this right away for you. We as the GC are hugely appreciative of that, right? Our superintendent's not like, wow, I'm stuck. I have to wait 5 days for an RFI. Like, what am I going to do? Right. And we're like, we're trying to resequence the job. We're trying to see what else we could do while we wait for a solution, try and figure something out. But it's that team effort and that sense of urgency. And where I said, it's like every single day counts. And if we lose time, it's so hard to make it back up.
One thing I would say to stay on schedule is like design changes or tweaks are totally acceptable. Try as a developer, like you have a goal in mind, it's going to be great. And like you get decision fatigue. You've been going through it. By the way, you probably brought the project like 4 years before. You've been working on this, and like we're just this last tail end of it.
Mhm.
And trends have changed, things have changed. So you want to like, oh, this is my opportunity to get that last thing in, right? Well, what happens is like it's almost as if you're grabbing us or our entire team of people by the back of the shirt, like, don't do that yet. And so what happens is they want to get going, but then they're like, you know what? He's probably going to grab me by the back of the shirt and tell me to stop again. So like, I'm not going to show up. I'm just going to wait until they get this sorted out. And then everyone gets a little battle weary, right? And then you see everyone's true colors when it gets to be extreme pressure,
Mm.
right? There is just pressure coming from everyone. Everyone's under pressure. Architects under pressure, supers under pressure. I'm under pressure. Luke's under pressure. Our accounting teams, like they haven't paid, like it's just a melting pot of pressure, and like egos start going sideways and like attitudes start going sideways and everyone's freaking out, right? This is just one example of not all projects.
Yeah.
But it's just like, it's real. Like, this is it. Like, you are in it right now. And like, it gets pretty intense, and you have to be able to like clear all that noise and be like, okay, what are we all trying to do? Like, we are trying to deliver this. Our end goal is the same. Everybody needs to calm down and be like, we got to get through this together. And this is where it's like, you need people to be kind, right? If you're a jerk or a dick to the people that are actually putting it together, they're going to be like, fuck this guy.
Yeah.
Right. But if you're like, you know what? I appreciate what you're doing. One of our clients was like, I'm getting a taco truck for the 60 guys that are cranking right now. And like, that little gesture shows appreciation, going up and like shaking their hand and getting their name and saying thank you and be like, thank you for doing this. Getting them in a room is like, it's unbelievable the amount that people will go above and beyond and like lay down in front of a track for you if you treat them with respect. And it starts from somebody sweeping to a technical guy programming, and it's like everybody across the board. So I think that's one way to
and
encourage
I think
people to do better.
Going back to the culture and the relationship that you build around a company. I mean, the number of times I have seen on a job site where it's been like, hey, this hasn't gotten done. What's going on? So I'll go, I emailed the architect. When? A week ago.
Oh my God.
Okay. I've emailed them 3 times now. And I've seen you do this, Evan, so many times in a meeting. You pick up your phone and you call them, like, have you called them? Oh no, but I've sent them like 6 emails. Pick up the phone, call the person, resolve it right there in 5 minutes. And you're like, done. That's done. So it's like little things like that you learn about having those relationships and having that culture of, that face-to-face communication and knowing how to communicate with people and getting in front of them goes so far, and you can get things done so quickly. I think you posted on LinkedIn once, pick up the phone. Pick up the phone and actually talk to somebody, as opposed to, oh no, I put it on Procore, I sent the email. Get back to that human interaction, and it'll get a lot more done faster.
I would also like to know why Monday is such like a special day. Everyone's like, I'll be there Monday. Right? And that was my thing. It's like, it's Tuesday at 9:36 a.m.
It'll be this Monday at 3 p.m. It'll be the next Monday.
Yeah, I'll be there I'll have my crew out there Monday. It's like, how about right now? And like, what do you mean? Like, right now? Just come now. And they're like, oh, I can't do that. It's like, great. What about tomorrow at 7 a.m.? No, it's like, what about tomorrow at 10? Like, they just are it's for some reason like Monday's a magic day. It's like, oh, get them there Monday.
Yeah. That's when I always start eating healthy. Monday. It's going to be Monday.
Right. And so it's this magic reset. But to Luke's point, it's like every day matters. And it's like, if you can get somebody there, be like, I don't care what it takes. Just get here. Like, I'll do whatever it needs to get done, and get them there the next day. Like, that's important too.
I remember I was hearing a story or listening to a story one time from another GC, and I was just asking him like how he approaches his day to day. He's moved like more just to the office side, so not on site anymore. And I was like, yeah, how do you like organize your time? Like, you seem to be really productive. And he was like, yeah, I'm really productive, because when I was on site, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars that are going out the door every single day. So the less days we are on site, the better.
Correct.
And so, but that, I mean, it feeds into everything you do when you're running these jobs. So totally understandable. But I want to talk a little bit about risks, and risks that have, I don't want to say always happen, but that you've learned to get ahead of now that you're like deeper into your career. Is there something that you've learned over the course of your career where you're like, I know this is going to come up, I'm going to address it right now?
I would say fire department trumps all, no matter what. Like, that's rule number one is life safety. Like Luke said, it's like, oh, the plans say this. Like, guys, like, I don't care. It's not safe. Like, okay, we'll do that, and it could be adding 50 exit signs. It could be adding light fixtures. It could be making a door in a different location. It's anything. It's like, whatever they say, that goes. And it goes back to like, you want everyone to be safe within reason. Some people you're like, I'm okay if they're not safe.
And I think there's different types of risks, right? There's there's risks that are within our control, within the project team's control. There's risks that are outside of our control. It's like back when COVID happened, a huge risk was uncertainty of material lead times, right? And then earlier this year, a risk was tariffs and the fires, and it's like what again is going to happen to pricing and lead time of equipment, right? And then how do we try and at least communicate that to a client? Because right, a lot of the clients that we work for, they have a lot of other stakeholders that they need to communicate to.
Mhm.
So if we're like, hey, right now our schedule is showing we'll be done by October 1st, but hey, when you communicate this out to your investors, if they're looking for 100% certainty, we want to let you know it's like, okay, LADWP, who's the power provider, right now their backlog, it could be 4 weeks to get them on site, it could be 12 weeks, right? So like this is a risk that we have on this project in terms of when are we actually going to get your certificate of occupancy, right? And say it's music venue, it's like, hey, letting you know there's this risk out there that if you start booking shows in October, if LADWP doesn't pull through for us, our end date may slide.
Mhm.
But there's another side of it. A lot of these, right, it'll come down to maybe financial or relationships, but right, like you could hire a local dry utility consultant. That's an upfront cost to an owner, and then we'll try and communicate to them on how do you evaluate the return on investment there. And that's the hard part about our industry, which is okay, an extra $20,000. Do I need to
Yeah.
spend it?
Yeah.
I'm already trying to, maybe shave some money off the budget to hit my initial pro forma, right? So it's like, how do we communicate that? And that's something that's also, we see it, we experience it, we go through it during job turnover, but like they're not in our control, but we're trying to still communicate to the owner, and they often look to us to say, you know, give them the solution when we can't, right? It's not something that's within our control either. So there's some stuff there where just, I think that's where reputation matters and experience matters and the type of work that you do. And then also your subcontractors having experience in that work as well. But that's why it's such a local market when it comes to understanding those things and seeing what's out there. And we still have plenty of lessons learned that happen all the time on our projects. So what are we doing? We're building, last year as a company, we all read Checklist Manifesto. So what are we doing? We're building out this set of checklists. It's like, okay, what do we need to make sure at the 80% stage of the project? What do we need to do? What are those 10 things that came up in the last 5 projects to make sure we don't stub our toe again? But I feel like that's where experience and reputation matters. And that's, what leads to building a really strong relationship with a client.
I like what you said earlier, though, about like sometimes the developer or the client doesn't want to produce that or pay that upfront cost for that down the line savings. And it's hard to necessarily show that or show like how much time and money that you're saving. But if you think about it another way, it's kind of like eating healthy.
Mhm.
It's kind of like taking care of your body or taking care of yourself. I mean, like you might not see the gains tomorrow, but projected out over 30 years, like, cumulatively it adds up.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's kind of like running a healthy job and like keeping the job, in a good, physical place.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like what's another risk? I could think of a specific example and another thing for a client to decide, but lighting designer, they get brought on board during the design phase of the project, hand over a lighting design to an electrical engineer. They kind of just take that, slap it in their plans. What happens? Lighting designer, they're like, okay, we don't want to pay CA for these people. We're not going to keep them on board. What happens? We submit a lighting package submittal, a lighting control submittal. Electrical engineer doesn't know what they're looking at. They're like, yep, approved, no problem. But like, right, that's a risk that I see up front when I'm like, okay, is your lighting designer staying on board? You have this really complex lighting control program, right? So it's like that's another risk to the client where I'm like, okay, and the client has to make a decision. Do I pay the additional money to keep my lighting designer on the project to review this? And is it worth the investment? And a lot of times none of us find out until it's too late.
Yeah.
All of a sudden the communication or the wiring between the fixtures, there's the scope gap that was in the drawings that got missed. So that's another, right? And that's where I'm saying that especially the developers, especially in adaptive reuse or even the design consultants, have a lot of grit because there's a lot of indigestion that happens with a lot of these things.
Yeah.
That's
And our,
what-
our industry, risk.
Yeah.
That's number one.
Well, before risk, like you just brought up a great point. So if we were talking about a complete set of documents, right? Now we're talking about CA.
Mhm.
So if someone were to design something and be like, here's the design, we'll see you in a year. How come that doesn't happen, right? Like, why is it not fully designed? Is there CA required? Like, I know we need assistance, like when we have questions to answer RFIs, but like, just wondering, like, is that complete set coordinated and produced for us to build? Like, could people go away? Do you think they could?
Mhm.
That we could get it done, or do you think we'd rely on the architect and engineer and everybody to answer those questions?
It's a good question, right? It's how complete are the drawings? And then, sometimes we throw out an example, and none of us were in this industry when it was this way, but 100 years ago when someone had to hand draw everything, you had to change a wall elevation, throw away that sheet of paper and spend hours
Yeah.
redesigning and detailing something out. Now it's, I could open up Bluebeam on my computer and I can use this eraser button. I could draw lines. I could do all this stuff in a matter of 5 minutes. So it's
Yeah.
also made it so easy to change things too. And so I think that's a part of it. It's the level of completeness of the design, but also it's that
It's like, yeah, it's pretty close.
Like a
Yeah.
slight chance. A slight chance. Like my
Yeah.
pencil is still sharpening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My pencil is not going down for a long time.
Yeah, and I think it also comes down to like risk and liability. Like you ask an RFI and they're like, oh my God, you ask the architect a question and they could probably answer it in 5 seconds,
Mhm.
but they're like, okay, I'm putting this on paper with our license on the line, with our stamp. I've got to go confirm and like do a bunch of research and just make sure, because then your contractor's like, well, you told me. Right.
Yeah.
And that's where the pointing fingers is just crazy. But as far as like risks, I would say incomplete design, the start and stop, and then Los Angeles is all areas, but you call for inspection for something on the critical path, and you're like, I called for Monday, or I called for it for Monday,
Mm-hmm.
and I might have like one minor correction, so I'm not okay to cover, or I'm not okay to pour, whatever it might be. And you're like, oh, well, I'll just call for tomorrow. It's like,
Yeah.
good luck with that.
Yeah.
It's 1 week. And so that little small infraction of an inspector calling out something and you not being able to make that small little tweak can cost you a week and not a day. And that is just absolutely devastating.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're like, well, how do I recover from that? So those are risks that are outside of our control. Kind of. I mean, we have control.
Yeah.
Like, you want to make sure you're prepared. And then the other risks are the number of people that have to touch something before it actually goes and gets delivered to the site and installed is unbelievable.
Mhm.
I was at an event, and I won't say what product it was because I don't want to upset an entire industry. But I was there, and I'm like, wow, how much is that per square foot? And they're like, oh, it's $2. And the guys I were with are like, not $2 to you. I was like, what do you mean? And they're like, well, this person it goes from the manufacturer to the rep, to the distributor, to the sub, to the contractor. I'm like, well, how much is it to me? They're like, $26. I'm like, this is unbelievable. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but the amount of markup, right? So now imagine if I could just buy that material, be like, I need it here. Can you ship it? I'll pay air freight. Yeah, absolutely. Let me coordinate it. Well, they're going to go and they're going to get it through all those people.
Mm-hmm.
Then all those people are going to coordinate the shipment,
Mhm.
and they're going to produce their invoices and markup and chat, and it's going to sit in their inbox. And like, that is what
Mm-hmm.
kills timelines too.
Yeah.
Just the amount of people that have to touch a product, material, fabrication of something before it actually gets to the site.
And the risk side.
That's the custom, right? Like
custom.
that's
Yeah.
custom. But if we just grab the designer, it's like, hey, let's go to this tile warehouse.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
see 5 boxes right here.
Mhm.
We can get this right now
Yeah.
Right.
for a good price. It's like, no, it's like
Yeah.
it's not part of the aesthetic, which is totally fine. But that's custom.
I mean, you look at, like, we do a lot of adaptive reuse, right? So in Los Angeles, there are periods of buildings, right, during boom times. And some of the buildings in Los Angeles, like in the historic core, are kind of I'd say like there's a ton of buildings from about 1920 to 1928. And you look at them and they're like, wow, they're all different. But are they? They're
Yeah.
all the same. You go inside, you're like, wow, that's that 12 by 24 marble on the floor down the corridor.
Mhm.
Oh, that Honduras mahogany entry door. Oh, that's cool. I've seen that in another building. that hardware, same thing as in the building next door.
Mhm.
And it's like the windows, same profile, same look and feel, double. It's like
Yeah.
everything's kind of the same. The bricks are kind of the same. Like everything's very similar, maybe a different color. But that the difference today is like everyone's an artist. And everything's
Yeah.
like we're building like handcrafted, never done before, bespoke buildings.
That was the thing I was going to key in on, to kind of level set the risk question to you two is a much different question than to a lot of other people, right? There's probably some contractors out there that do tilt up buildings are like, it's not that big of a deal. But the projects that you guys specifically work on are highly complex, very high design. They have architects of record paired up with the top designers in LA. So it's a much different risk profile than if you're building a 50 unit ground up plaster, multifamily box.
Right.
So there's a lot of different there just to kind of level set that you guys work on a very different type of project that comes with a lot more, I would say, risk profile overall. But to kind of wrap it up and to get through here, one big thing is, again, good takeaways for people that are listening in on this is what is one piece of advice that you would give to a developer before their next project is about to kick off? So we've learned a ton here. We've gone from the top of the funnel to, hey, get some good pre-construction in. How are we managing budgets? How are we managing schedules, culture on our job sites and things like that? But coming back to it, if I'm a developer and I'm going to kick off a complex project in a month, what's one or two things you guys might say, hey, key in on these things, it'll be helpful.
Other than hiring the cooperative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Luke, what do you think?
I think what you had said earlier, Evan, it's, be human. We're a relationship-based industry. And hopefully if you're a developer, no matter how seasoned, no matter how many projects you're doing, but don't try to churn and burn and eat people up to get the best ROI on your building. It's partner with someone, develop those long-term relationships. Maybe the first project with that team isn't going to be the most perfect one, but it's like try and find the right partner and then stick with them and build that long-term relationship. Like you have to pick the right qualified person they need to deliver. But I think really if someone's approach is to pick the lower end feed design team, who aren't going to necessarily coordinate with each other, like they don't even maybe have in their fee to go through coordination with the other design consultants, throw together a set of plans, bid it out to 5 general contractors, and whoever comes in low, I'm going with that person. You're setting yourself up for a lot of headaches and a lot of uncertainty down the road. But I think it's if you build those strong relationships where you can bring in someone who's a dependable partner early on, that's how you're going to get that certainty in the long run. And I think you mentioned it before, it's like, what's your starting number and what's your ending number?
Mm-hmm.
A good way to get a really low starting number is that approach I told you about, like the lower fee design team, competitive bid with 5 GCs. You'll have a really low starting number, or probably whatever that delta is, it's going to be astronomical compared to the other approach. But that's that uncertainty and risk. That's just the nature of our industry.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think, and then essentially like be prepared and like know what you're getting into, right? Plan what you want to deliver, try to make the least amount of changes possible and make good decisions and pay on time. Because like when we get paid on time, then we can pay all the suppliers and subs on time. And then they want to come back to this job site. If we become the job or your job and you're, going through it and you're like, okay, is my funding lined up or not? If you pay on time, everyone's like, I'm going to go back to that job because they pay on time. So that's one thing I would say. And then listen, because there are a lot of smart people that you surround yourselves with when you're developing a project, and you bring in experts around the board and make sure you listen to what they're saying. And like, just because you want something doesn't mean it can actually be done, that you have to listen to the objective feedback.
I've seen you guys' sensitive side too. I mean, be human, be kind, but
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more with that. I mean, the human aspect to what we all do and the relationship side solves so many of the big problems that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. So Any final thoughts here, Chris?
No, just
No. Soaking it all in.
yeah. If anyone's looking for a really great GC, make sure you hire Rion Richardson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah.
This was fun.
This is just series 1. We're going to get back for more fine-tuned adaptive reuse episodes and a lot more in the future
Love
here,
it.
hopefully. So thanks for coming, guys.
Yeah,
you.
thanks, guys. This was great.
Yeah. Thank you.